So, an early version of Skills 2.0 has been revealed. I will be honest, as a fan of the trifecta system to the point where I've played the game for well over 1,000 hours and reached max renown, I have been dreading this update. But what has been shown off gives me hope that it's a worthy successor. Mostly. There is a lot of issues with the skills that have been shown, but they have said that all of this is a work in progress. Though they have also said that the release version of this won't have time to be adjusted all that much, which could mean a lot of things, though I'm choosing to interpret it as when the system is implemented, skills won't get meaningfully changed or swapped around. As of right now, however, they want feedback on the system, which is exactly why I'm making this video. Before we get into the actual skills themselves, I should address the elephant in the room, that being no one, including the devs, knows how the skill points are going to be allocated in the new system. The possibility of skill point scaling akin to how Payday 2 does skills is, to be perfectly honest, a very bad idea. Skills costing more the further in a tree they are is not only confusing for new players, it also leads to scumping skill points on things that do next to nothing for your build just because you have one skill point left over. In my opinion, the ideal way the system's skill points would work is that every skill in Ace would cost a single skill point, and having any base skill unlocked in a tier would unlock the next. Also, by acing the tier 1, you could get tier 3's, so you don't have to take skills you don't need even more, same for tier 2's to tier 4's. Though having aces not affect tree progress at all might be better balance-wise. This wouldn't completely solve the pointless skill grab issue Payday 2 had. How many Payday 2 builds take Painkiller's ace just to get the combat medic and inspire even though it's a mostly pointless skill? But with how most tier 1 skills scale off how many skill points are invested into their tree, it isn't as big of an issue. A major improvement to this system over Payday 2's is that gaining progress in a skill tree will also give progress in other trees in the same category, which I like a lot. With the preamble covered, let's actually get into the skills themselves. First up is the soldier category, starting with the armor bag focused juggernaut. Extra protection is very much a typical tier 1 skill, which mostly have effects that scale off points invested in the same tree, nothing of major note here. Head guard is just a slightly different bullseye. Armor gating fans, here's your time to clap. Armored up 1 and 2 are kinda boring, but understandable, nothing important here really. And then, for some reason, Beast of Burden is here. This is a terrible spot for this skill, as it means if you aren't running an armor build, you either have to dump 3 or 4 skill points in Juggernaut just to carry 2 bags, or you don't do that and you're the asshole who can't carry 2 bags. This is really a sign of things to come. For some reason, Starbreeze seems to think that armor is still underpowered, even though it's easily the meta pick right now. Remember that Beast of Burden is here, because we will be talking about it again later. Lastly, Bastion is just disengaged with a cooldown, perfectly reasonable as tier 4, though 30 seconds is way too short. Somewhere around at 90 or 120 seconds would be way better, since cloakers tend to take more than 30 seconds to come back and kick you without the help of an FBI van or techie around. Alright, now on to the assault rifle and LMG-based commando tree. Yes, to no one's surprise, we have sadly regressed to weapon type specific skills, though they are mostly not as imbalanced as Payday 2's. Never mind, I lied. Rifleman Basic is not balanced. 0.1 armor penetration doesn't sound like a lot, but as an example, High Grain only gives 0.2, meaning dumping all 12 skill points into Commando would give you 6 times High Grain permanently. This skill scales way too fast on an incredibly powerful stat, which at its maximum effectiveness would be akin to the holy grail of unbalanced skills from Payday 2, Surefire Aced. To be honest, this skill should either only increase armor pen by 0.4 or 0.5. Anyway, Focus Fire is a cool skill that is well done. Stockpile is a skill that exists in all the weapon-specific skill trees, and frankly 80% is a lot for some types, even though Ammo Reserve isn't really a mechanic right now. Breaking Point is the good ending of a Rifleman Basic currently is. A contextual bonus to armor penetration is great, especially since it ends when you get a kill. Very excited to mag dump into a Dozer's back with the Bliss Bruta. Hollow Point rounds is fine, I guess. Not really something I expect to use, but not like aggressively bad. Speaking of aggressively bad, Ammo Funnel is now locked to LMGs and ARs. This sucks a lot. Not only that, it only triggers when you kill a cop with armor remaining. Though, the change where it can't trigger on existing ammo boxes is great. Ammo Funnel, as it is right now, is perfectly acceptable, except for the ridiculous ammo pickup of the FSA. I can't really think of another gun that makes Ammo Funnel broken with the ammo pickup rework of 2.1.2. Here's what the current drop rates for basic cops with the FSA are. On their own, these numbers don't really mean anything. But with the context that the FSA can one-shot a cop from medium range, is semi-automatic with a very forgiving spread pattern, and has a shit ton of pellets per shot, it very much puts in perspective just how powerful the FSA is. The main problem with the FSA is that there isn't really any downside to using it like most other weapons, and decreasing any of its actual combat stats would sort of defeat the purpose of the weapon. So, why not just reduce its base ammo pickup? These values are what I would consider ideal for the FSA's magazine mods if this were to be done. The weapon stays a powerful gun, but with the downside of actually being able to run out of ammo if you aren't careful, similar to how the Justicar functions. If this change were to take effect, I don't think ammo funnel would need to be weapon type specific anymore, and with its placement as Commando's Tier 4, you would need to dedicate a good amount of skill points into Soldier to actually use it, and with the 2.1.2 ammo rework, you wouldn't always need or want it. Anyway, with the FSA rant over, it's time for the last soldier tree, the frag grenade-based Grenader. Now, this will not be the only throwable specific skill tree, and the problem with these is that they somewhat imply we will never receive a 6th throwable at any point, which, needless to say, would suck. Anyway, Bombs Away is fine for right now. We will be back here later. Burn damage is okay, helpful for stragglers who got left tapped at the edge of the AoE and for dozers. The lovely, boring stockpile is back with a weird explanation of how it works, which seems to imply you can change throwable mid-heist, which would be a weird and pointless mechanic that 4 people ever would use, similar to the Payday 2 armor bag. Though, considering Extra Pocket says if you have a tool in your loadout when you can't unequip tools, it's probably just weird Starbreeze writing. Scavenger is just Scrounger, and wonderfully not frag grenade specific. It can apply to any throwable, which I greatly commend. Overcooked is back with a different name. Now it is Sudden Impact with a near identical functionality, though it is now frag grenade specific, though as we see later, this is for a reason. And the Tier 4 is Mad Bomber, which the base skill of is just a better frugal thrower that is frag grenade specific, which due to other grenade specific skills, I don't really care. The Ace is a cool upgrade too. However, you may notice the complete lack of any self-damage reducing skills here, which if you've ever used frag grenades in Payday 3, you know this makes them completely unusable. This is why I said we would be back to Bombs Away Basic, because frags already have plenty of damage with clusters from Mad Bomber Ace and the 60% bonus from Sudden Impact. This skill becomes mostly pointless. That is why I recommend that it should be changed to, for every skill point in this tree, you take 10% less self-damage from your own frag grenades. This does not apply to other explosives. This ability caps at 90%. Changing it to this would not only give a better purpose to Bombs Away Basic, it would also make people who run grenade builds not need to be revived right out of custody every 2 seconds. And with that is the end of the soldier category of skill trees, and now we move into the ninja category with the stealth and dodge focused ghost. The Tier 1 of Ghost brings back the divisive dodge mechanic from Payday 2. Technically, it was already in the game, but who the hell uses misdirect? Some people don't like dodge, I get that. It did completely ruin the incredibly fragile balance of Payday 2, and Hacker completely rules the meta of that game, but as long as dodge's balance is kept in check, I don't mind it. This is the typical Tier 1, offering 30% dodge at full investment, assuming the skill system works the way I hope it does. From here on out, I'm just going to assume the skills cost 1 point each. The Ace is kind of boringly powerful, encouraging boring play by standing in a corner. Now, I would give an alternative, but because dodge isn't really a major mechanic in Payday 3 at the moment, I can't really give one. Ghost will need to be updated once it's actually in the game to keep its balance in check, as right now its balance is purely theoretical. A skills beta like Payday 2 had when its skills got a rework would be ideal for fixing this issue, but apparently some developers have said this won't be a possibility, maybe because of console restrictions. Anyway, Judo Chop is a neat stealth skill, however the return of the near useless pressure points is strange and disappointing. Pressure points is inconsistent and very jank, not to mention not all that useful when you can just hide bodies in better spots and not have to worry about them. There's a reason almost no one uses pressure points. Flow state is a cool way to remove a bit of luck from dodge, which I appreciate, though 7.5 could be a little high for the Ace, but again, purely theoretical as of right now, so it could be low, actually. Locksmith is just a better quick fingers, especially with the Ace ability being instant. However, this is the first instance of the term quick melee, which is strange considering that means nothing. There's only one melee in the game, you hit the button, and you melee. Even if there's a different animation, it's still the same. This implies a deeper melee system, which implies further skill trees. This isn't unprecedented. Payday 2 got its 5th category during the Hoxton Breakout event. This would also give the possibility of another grenade being added, which with the existence of voice lines that imply being on fire...
Fire can't hurt the bulldozer! That's nice and warm!
would probably be a Molotov. Anyway, I hope this skill would also count towards the Break 10 Locks daily challenge, since that one is always a bitch. Under Pressure is a neat skill that could easily become unbalanced very quickly. Again, Ghost will need balance patches to neither be overwhelmingly powerful or pitifully weak. On the Run Basic is fine, it's just duck and cover aced, but good. But the aced being locked to SMGs for no real reason is very strange. And unlike Ammo Funnel, I can't claim this is the FSA's fault, since, spoilers I guess, shotguns also have a weapon type specific shooting while running skill, meaning specifically pistols, ARs, LMGs, and marksmans are the issue. Which doesn't really make sense. Frankly, if you can aim a pistol or a marksman while running, you deserve those kills. ARs and LMGs, I get, we don't need surefire ace while running again, though the loss of a running reload for all weapons would be a major quality of life drop that would make the game significantly less fun, so I don't really get why that part is SMG and shotgun specific. Speaking of SMGs, the next skill tree is the SMG focused Special Ops, which is probably why On the Run Aced is SMG specific for some strange reason. SMG Adept and Stockpile are fine, no notes. The 80% ammo reserve bonus is fair since SMGs like chewing through ammo. Multitasker is the first reference to armor layers. Later skills reveal that this does not just mean breaking enemies' armor, but that cops will have multiple armor layers similar to our own armor chunks. If this is applied to existing health and armor, that's fine, but if this mechanic is difficulty specific, that is a major issue, because one of Payday 3's best mechanics is the lack of difficulty-based cop health. It makes gunplay feel great regardless of difficulty, it makes going up a difficulty less daunting, and if someone's favorite weapon isn't meta, they can still use it since they don't need to deal with nearly 1,000 damage just to kill a heavy SWAT. If they buff cop armor because of skills 2.0 on all difficulties, that's fine. They did that for specials back in 2.1.2 and the game is better off because of it, but making it scale would greatly damage the game. For right now, though, I'm going to hope and assume that it won't be difficulty scaled. Anyway, back to Multitasker, the ability itself is fine. I like the instant reload mechanic. It fits well with the mag dumping nature of SMGs. Cracked is fine, again, works well with the mag dumping nature of SMGs. Steady Hands is really cool. I do wish the buff itself worked on any weapon type, similar to Overkill from Payday 2. Swapping quickly to utilize the buff could be fun, and incentivize multiple weapon type usage. Though I do think gaining Steady Hands should stay SMG specific, as gaining 35% accuracy with a sniper is way too good without a weapon swap. Of course, that would require a secondary SMG to execute, and if you think the Tribune is one, you are somehow wrong. This is a pistol, somehow, even though it's functionally very much an SMG. Sadly, gun nerds exist. Also, tacking on running while shooting with SMGs onto Steady Hands Ace would be a nice place for it if it were to be moved, though not as part of the buff. SM Genius is neat. 5% is low with how infrequently you can reload an empty mag. Wish the Ace just increased the buff to 10% rather than increasing how many times it stacks, but other than that, it's cool. And now for the last skill tree in Ninja, the smoke grenade based fog machine. We've got some basic quality of life and heavy smoker and stockpile as always. Brain fog is a better discombobulate. Smokescreen is just Sicario, but different. Could be unbalanced, but still dodges pure theoreticals right now. Poisonous gas is pretty bad. The damage it deals is not great, taking 6 full seconds to kill a normal cop while they were within the smoke if you have the ace. Of course, this is probably just meant to soften up the cops rather than actually kill them, but not affecting armor means it would be mostly ineffective. There is also no death knell or overcooked equivalent for smoke grenades, despite marking being their main function right now. The lack of an overcooked equivalent is fine. It would be kinda broken with smokescreen, but no marking is rough for actually seeing cops in the smoke, not to mention the assassin's medal equivalent. Though I agree that instant marks were a little too powerful, and with poisonous gas being not great and somewhat defeating the purpose of smokes, what if we replaced it with a different skill? Let's call it echolocation. The basic being, after 3 seconds of being within your smoke grenades, enemies will be marked until they leave the smoke. And the ace being, enemies are now marked after 2 seconds and are marked for 5 seconds after leaving the smoke. This would give much needed visibility to smokes and still be useful, but not necessarily the best for Assassin's Medal. And the Tier 4 is a neat ability. The 4,444% headshot damage increase is oddly specific, but cool. And that rounds out the ninja category. We are now entering the mechanic category, starting with the sentry-based engineer. And it is really good. I have only a few minor nitpicks. The penalty from Sentry Squad Ace is a little high, and Artificial Ally Basic is a little weird. But other than that, this tree is incredibly well designed. I've always disliked having to fully pick up and put down sentries to fix them, and Repair Job mitigates the issue really well, along with giving a great synergy with shocks, but not a required one, which is helped by engineer and the shock grenade tree being in the same category. It very much bears repeating that this tree is really good. This is how skills should be done. And now it's time for Shotgunner, which is surprisingly not bad. Calling shotgun perfectly deals with the issue of range without removing spread. Stockpile is almost definitely too high here, but whatever. Point blank is mostly bad. Shotgun's already easily one-shot cops at close range. Really the only one that can't is the Spaz 12, and that gun is kind of just in need of a rework rather than a skill just for itself. I guess it could help with dozers, but shotguns already deal with them just fine, especially the Pursuivant and FSA. This is probably meant as a replacement for face, but that skill is more useful for non-shotguns. Speed Loader is the ever amazing and definitely better replacement for Ammo Funnel. Just trust me, bro. Kidding, it's fine. I just prefer the current ammo funnel rather than this originally cut replacement. Annihilation is just point blank but well designed. Just does what point blank does, but better. No notes. Berserker Basic is a neat replacement for combat reload, and the Ace is the skill I talked about earlier back in Ninja. If On the Run Ace would be reworked, this would also need to be as well. Maybe even just shooting while sprinting would be enough for a tier 4 ace, as that ability on shotguns is powerful enough. Now for the previously mentioned Shock Grenade Tree Electrician. Shock Factor, Stunned, and Stockpile are all good, no notes. Electric Tenderizer is fine, but does kind of encourage standing and staring at cops while they get shocked for the max buff. Renewable Energy is good, though the Ace is kind of bad. Highly Conductive Basic implies strange things about armor layers if they can be regained by enemies so easily, but the Ace is very cool and well thought out. And that's all she wrote for Electrician. That was an impressively good show for the mechanic category. Let's hope that continues into the hacker category with the hacking and ECM-based Black Hat. First off, Security Expert Basic brings back runtimes, though with the more complicated way of gaining more runtimes, there should probably be a HUD indicator showing how many runtimes you have while in stealth, with the first to be replaced on the left and the most recent on the right, with each action that uses a runtime having a different color. The Ace is just Scrambler Basic. It's nice, but nothing to write home about. Playback Basic is the ever-important camera loops, and the Ace is the oft-forgotten routed ping, which in my over 1,000 hours of playing the game have never seen anyone use. Pump the Jam Basic is just signal scan, and Ace is just bad extra pockets. It would make more sense if this was just extra pockets and they were swapped. I don't really want to burn a point for the extra ECM on the Teach Noobs Where Cameras and FBI Vans Spawn skill. Radio Star is the ever-fantastic glitch protocol with a buff to 10 seconds with its Ace, which is greatly appreciated. High Marks feels like it's from a different skill tree, and it's probably because the Assassin's Medal equivalent is in the same category, otherwise I have no issue with the skill. And then, we have the Tier 4. With the theme so far being stealth-based hacks and ECM skills, one would assume that the arguably best stealth skill, Speed Hack, would be here, right? No, it's not. What else could possibly go in the stealth-based ECM skill tree? The loud skill, Kinetic Short Circuit. What's Kinetic Short Circuit, you ask? Well, it's a skill buried in Scrambler that at most you see, try it once, realize it is terrible, and never use again. Because why would you spend skill points on stunning enemies with your bullets when you could instead spend them on, killing them before you need to stun them? Even then, there's better stunning skills than this. Hell, I would go as far to say that Kinetic Short Circuit is the single worst skill in the entire game, and they felt the need to nerf it by splitting its abilities into a basic and an ace. So, how do we fix this? Simply put, we take Kinetic Short Circuit behind the shed and then dump it in the trash where it belongs. Then we put Speed Hack's increased hacking speed while ECMs are happening to the basic and the instant pager answers on the ace. The basic synergizes well with the rest of Black Hat, while the Ace gives a single way of increasing the speed of answering pagers within Skills 2.0, because, for some reason, there is not currently a skill that is equivalent to Open Mic, Speed Hack, or Cover Up, meaning that every single time you kill a guard, you will have to sit there and watch a square fill for 10 full seconds. Pager answering is one of the worst mechanics in Payday 2 Stealth. Payday 3 greatly improved upon the mechanic by giving workarounds and a faster answering speed. Not having your workaround workaround will only lead to being unlucky because you killed the guard in a slightly bad spot, and now the lead guard just so happened to pathfind directly to where you are, and you can't drop the pager 5 seconds in to throw a distraction knife, or else you lose 2 radios or trigger search if you already answered one, or even trigger loud on poison blue or party powder. The existing workarounds for pager answering either show intent with cover up, where you very much meant to kill that guard on purpose, which if used on certain problem guards shows impressive game knowledge and skill to pull it off, or in the case of speed hack also shows skill in pulling off a workaround while you have already been caught by a guard. I've already talked about how Judo Chop Aced is set to become the equivalent to a buggy skill that no one uses, so why not have that be an instant answer too? It would be a great replacement for Cover Up. After Speed Hack was introduced and the lead guard trick was fixed, Cover Up kind of fell by the wayside, but a faster version would fit greatly. Not to mention how cool it would feel to walk into a cam's room, hit the operator in the neck, and then just walk away like it's a movie. Anyway, with that being said, removing instant radio answers would really hamper the fun of stealth and add a degree of randomness that isn't needed. I really hope that at least one workaround exists in the release version of Skills 2.0. If not, stealth as a whole will be severely hurt. Now that that's over, let's move on to the handgun-oriented Hitman. Hopefully it gives a better showing than the perk deck. Pistolier is mostly fine, though some of you can probably see where this is going. Quick Draw is weird. It feels mostly like a band-aid solution to there not being handgun primaries. This skill should be updated if they ever add akimbos, but it's fine, I guess. Stockpile is fine. Pistols also like to guzzle ammo, so the 80% feels valid. Cheap Trick Basic is pointless, as you almost never take damage while holding Human Shield, because that's the whole point of a Human Shield. Really, this ability should make you unable to be stunned while holding a Human Shield, probably with a cooldown of 15 seconds or something. The Ace, however, is yet another sign of things to come. Bounty Hunter is a very cool ability that I like a lot. And then there's the left Tier 3 Spatial Awareness. The basic is just killer kinesthetics, but handgun exclusive, and the ace is just assassin's metal, but handgun exclusive. Here's the many problems with that. Firstly, handguns no longer have ammo funnel. Relying on the basic for additional marks only works until you run out of bullets in your magazine, and if the mark runs out before you can reload, your mark chain is over. Even then, starting a mark chain at all is difficult, since the best enemy to start one with are shields, the hardest enemy for handguns to take down other than dozers. Smoke grenade marks don't exist anymore, so we are mainly relying on trip lasers, which we only get one of since extra pockets doesn't exist anymore, though we get one back every time we kill a zapper, which is the most common special since they spawn first. You may ask, can't we get 2 with Bounty Hunter Aced, unless it ignores the cap of tools? No. We would have to use the Specialist frame, which has 2 plates, meaning you'd have to break a plate on purpose to even be able to use the Ace. Of course, we could use motion sensors, but those are limited use. And if your team all of a sudden gets really good at hunting zappers, or there's another person trying to run a spatial awareness build, you might just not get any. Of course, there's the flashbang skill Spotlight, which I haven't gotten to yet, that also marks cops, but the problem is, to even benefit from its ace to get more flashes from ammo boxes, we need Scavenger from Grenadier, a 4-point skill investment that means a lot with a build like this. Of course, the other flashbang skills make them the most viable option by far, but to the detriment of build variety. I won't even mention routed ping or microcams because of how incredibly situational they are. And that's all the ways you can mark basic cops in Skills 2.0. All of these are flawed in some way. On top of that, the current Assassin's Metal struggles to keep up with an ammo funnel fed FSA. Reducing it to just the weakest weapon type in the game won't magically make it good. It does, the opposite. Part of me thinks all this unnecessary nerfing comes from the original intent of Assassin's Metal being a sort of comeback or clutch mechanic, but I doubt that, as most people run it as a build-defining ability, and the person who designed the original incarnation of Assassin's Metal isn't at the company anymore. So how do we make this work? Well, firstly, better marks will help. Making Pump the Jam have swapped skills, with the basic being extra pockets as a start, but having another option like Death Knell or my replacement for Poisonous Gas would be nice for variety. But we aren't ever getting out of the we only have one gun that can proc the effect we need to not die hole without a usable primary, so let's fix that. First, both the basic and ace of spatial awareness now procs on marked enemies with both any handgun or any silenced weapon. Our primary isn't gaining any buffs from this tree, meaning it will either need some skills from its own tree to keep up, or become a sort of primary secondary weapon, being inherently less powerful due to it not being spec'd into, because of how many points we need to invest in stuff like Scavenger. This also makes Quick Draw more useful since our primary does something now and isn't just a paperweight. Though now Spatial Awareness is a bit too powerful for a tier 3, so let's swap it with Bounty Hunter. Its handgun requirement means it being lower down isn't as big of a deal. Hell, the graphics that have been used for the reveal of Skills 2.0 show Ammo Funnel and Breaking Point being swapped in the Commando tree. Clearly this type of swap isn't out of the question. With these changes, or maybe even just the re-addition of silenced weapons to Spatial Awareness without any improvements to marking, would probably be enough for it not to be stomped under the boot heels of armor and dodge builds, but not reach the heights it used to have around Assassin's Medal's first edition. With that finally over, we move on to the flashbang-focused Flashpoint. Shine On is a perfectly serviceable tier 1, Flash Mob Basic is a really cool ability that I've wished was in the game in the past, and the Ace is just a good version of Grifter Aced. Stockpile is stockpile. Spotlight, as mentioned, is one of the only things holding Spatial Awareness together with a nice ace, but requiring a skill from a different category to be truly useful. Hypersensitive makes using flashes for marks way more viable, though maybe a little too much. Sunburn is a very powerful skill, to the point where Spatial Awareness builds might just need it to even survive at all, if nothing is done to make the skill better, which isn't great for build variety. And with that said, we are finally done with Hacker and can move on to the Conman category, starting with the social stealth based Imposter skill tree. You wouldn't be able to tell that it's social stealth oriented by the basic tier 1, but the ace seems to imply a replacement for Rush akin to Grifter basic, but Thrill Seeker immediately shuts down that idea by making Adrenaline not decrease while unmasked. The ace of which is weird and restrictive. I don't really see a reason why it has to be only while unmasked. There's no other skills in the entire system that impact movement speed other than the 2 skills tied to bag movement, so letting Adrenaline keep its increased movement speed seems perfectly fine to me. And then we get to Plain Sight. The basic skill is just walk the walk but bad, and the ace doesn't make a lot of sense considering Hall Pass Aced does the same thing since being in a secure area is an illegal action. Though I think the idea here is that being in a secure area wouldn't be an illegal action anymore, rather it being a separate thing entirely, which I don't really mind. That would make more sense for new players. While Hall Pass Basic is a nice new addition I like a lot, makes maps like Dirty Ice and Diamond District less of a pain to do. Overall, these 4 skills are close to making sense, but are lacking proper synergy. First off, why are we gaining Adrenaline in stealth just to have it not decrease and only give us movement speed? Is unmasked movement speed so powerful that it requires 4 skill points? Plain Sight is also just a downgrade to existing skills that make civs and cams not detect you at all in those respective areas. Also, these skills being as they are adds dev time and a very possible chance for bugs since there's nothing in the entire game right now that slows detection at all, meaning the functionality would need to be added and playtested. Not to mention, with the current skill system, stealth is perfectly well balanced, feels mostly good to play, and importantly, doesn't need to be harder. We don't need another 1.3. These factors are why I think Plain Sight and Hall Pass should be the same skill. The combined skill would sit where Hall Pass is now, with the basic being, if you are unmasked and have Adrenaline, employees will not detect you in secure areas or while performing illegal actions, with the ace being, while you have Adrenaline and are unmasked, cameras won't detect you in private areas or while performing illegal actions. Now, Thrill Seeker should probably be changed, as right now it's kind of just a bigger skill dump, but first let's make its ace its basic and remove the unmasked requirement so loud Adrenaline builds can benefit from it since running around like a babyface's scout is fun. Then make its ace an Assassin Aced equivalent, giving 10 Adrenaline for each guard you mark while unmasked, while also having a 10-second cooldown before the same guard can be marked for Adrenaline again, bringing with it another way to keep up Adrenaline for the other skills while also keeping the feeling that you're keeping up an act rather than just bumping into somebody once and calling it a day. Now you're probably wondering what we're going to do with this giant gaping hole. Well, it's time we bring back Beast of Burden. Strong Armed just so happens to have an ace that synergizes quite well with it, and we just made a perfect tier 2 spot for it, so let's put it here. Swap the skills around a little bit to make the tree align better, and there we go. Also, Strong Armed Basic is a really cool skill that I'm going to use a lot, no notes. But this also leaves a gaping hole back in Juggernaut, so what do we put there? Well, there's no clean slate, but I have the sneaking suspicion that it's going to become an inherent ability, though if it's not, then dropping it here with a skill that makes shield and nader belts not stun you every 30 seconds seems well fit enough. If it does become inherent, something for snipers would be nice for non-impact armor builds. Slap on a generic name like Unstoppable, and there you go, nice ability that not every build needs to grab so they don't feel like an asshole. Of course, the skills in Imposter don't really need that much rebalancing, but Beast of Burden really fits better in here, and it has a lot of wasted potential as it currently stands. Anyway, Imposter's Tier 4 seeing red really feels like a non sequitur from both my modified version and the existing one. The same can be said for Adrenaline Junkie Basic. But we will be back to those once we are done with Pill Pusher, the next skill tree that's built around medic bags. Doctor's Orders is an equivalent for Code Blue and Combat Medic respectively, which I mostly don't take issue with. Field Medic 1 and 2 are just stockpile, but for medic bags. Scar Tissue and Pain Tolerance are some of the worst design skills I have ever seen. Because they only activate on suffered downs rather than on downs you have, means the ideal way to start a heist with an Adrenaline Loud build would be to hurl yourself off a balcony until you reach your minimum downs. All the while, some poor heister has to babysit you while you down yourself over and over again, reviving you every time, and then avoid using a medic bag at all costs to keep the maximum buff from them. While it doesn't say that regaining a down removes a stack from these abilities, without that caveat you could easily get max damage reduction on your adrenaline and or a ridiculous amount of max health really quickly. Health Guru and its ace are pretty cool without the weird balance of pain tolerance and scar tissue breathing down your neck. Now let's imagine a scenario. You load into a heist and you have the full Pill Pusher tree unlocked. Because of this, you find the first place you can take fall damage from and you repeatedly jump off until you are at 0 downs, ensuring the maximum buff from both pain tolerance and scar tissue. Since there's no Fortitude Ace equivalent, you gain 4 downs worth of bonus from doing this, giving you a 40% bonus on top of your pre-existing 60% from your skill point investments, and an additional 200 health points. Of course, you are in half health since you were just revived, so you place a medic bag down, which heals you to full health without restoring a down. Now, as long as you keep some adrenaline either from pain tolerance, trading for first aid kits, or spatial awareness, you are nearly immortal. Of course, the 80% damage reduction cap is a thing. Still, getting down on purpose is a major issue. I have to imagine the point of these skills is to help you not die after you've been down naturally, but they really just encourage boring and annoying gameplay for everyone involved. So, how do we fix this? Well, first off, pain tolerance needs a complete rework. Healing from loose cash is way too situational and would make fighting over loose cash worse than it already is for overkill weapon progress. Throwing knives, as we see later, are perfectly capable of wiping out waves of cops far too quickly for 25 adrenaline per kill, though I think they should be able to proc spatial awareness as they are silent. However, the other 3 uses have some promise but are kind of low. So the new pain tolerance reads as follows. Whenever you revive a crewmate uses your medic bag, or when you perform a takedown, gain 15 adrenaline for each down you currently have. Its ace being any damage your adrenaline takes is reduced by the amount of the last adrenaline you gained. This caps at a 60% reduction. This method keeps the combat medic style of play the Pill Pusher line is trying to encourage, and it also means that spatial awareness builds don't need to bother grabbing pain tolerance to make their build work. Scar Tissue instead gets completely replaced with Seeing Red from Imposter, now having a 1% damage bonus at base and a 2.5 damage bonus from the ace since it's not a tier 4 anymore. Now what about the big hole we just left in Imposter? Well, something I haven't mentioned is that Imposter is the last stealth tree in Skills 2.0, meaning Drop Cloth, one of the best stealth skills, does not return in any form. This is a major issue. Guard chains are rarely your fault when they happen, mostly being caused by bad luck with guard pathing. Drop Cloth fixes guard chains near perfectly, and its removal would make stealth significantly more luck-based and again severely hurt stealth and make it more difficult for no real reason. So let's put it as the tier 4 Imposter. This time we call it something like Intimidator to sell the grifter theme we have, and now we make the base skill have the drop cloth effect for half the amount of time as the current skill, with the ace returning it to its former length and adding a new functionality where quick meleeing a corpse while it is undetectable makes the effect dissipate early, allowing player control over when the radio, if any, is answered. Now, the final elephant in the room is Adrenaline Junkie Basic. With the redesigned Imposter, it doesn't really fit here anymore, and nor does it really fit with the actual Imposter tree. So, and hear me out with this one, let's swap it with Doctor's Orders Basic. Combat Medic and Code Blue are already split between Grit and Rush, and the faster revive speed fits our bag moving abilities we placed in Imposter better. And Adrenaline Junkie Basic being in the same tree as Seeing Red just makes sense. Of course, with the removal of Scar Tissue, there isn't any way to gain additional max health with this system, but if I'm being honest, annealing shielding never really felt like it did much, not to mention the hot effect was broken for months, only being fixed with delivery charge, and the reworked pain tolerance haste kind of takes its place. But other than that, we are finally done shuffling these trees around. Alright, let's move on to the last of the conman category with Cutthroat for throwing knives. Knife Expert is just cooler stockpile. Deep Wounds is just a basic knife damage increase that if you haven't used knives in a bit you may think is pointless, but since 2.1.2 they don't kill specials in one hit anymore. Plus, Knife Expert Ace most likely comes with some damage fall off per pierce. Laceration at first glance seems worthless since Deep Wounds would probably be enough to one-shot specials, but importantly the bleed damage is direct health damage, and there's no exclusion of dozers here, meaning you could saunter up to a dozer, toss a knife at him, and it'll die in 3 seconds flat. Fan Throw could be cool, could suck. Deadly Arc is vague without being able to test it, though I wonder how this skill will fare in stealth. Prison Shiv is a really cool alternative to Scavenger with a fitting downside. Hidden Blade is nearly exactly a skill I've thought of as an alternative to a full melee system, which is some fun convergent evolution. This skill is great, no notes. And with that, we are done with the Conman category, and now we are on to the last category, Professional, starting with the Manipulator equivalent, Puppet Master. Trade Broker, if maxed out, leaves us with 7 consumables per hostage, which is quite the upgrade. The Ace is some nice quality of life. Magnetic Charm is just Silver Tongue and Overbearing. Might as well throw Stockholm Syndrome in here too to complete their trifecta of skills to skip. Consumerism is almost walking pharmacy, except it dodges the number 2. Scare Tactics is just menacing with a nice buff on the Ace. Human Resources is the first time in a mainline Payday game where you can get more deployables after the heist starts, the closest thing being Magician for notoriety. Notably, Magnetic Charm does put us over the 4 trade breakpoint, giving it some purpose even if you need all but one of the other skills to hit that. Speaking of the other skills, Insurance Plan is just Crew Chief, but good now. And that's all for Puppet Master. On to Longshot for Sniper and Marksman rifles. Head Game's basic seems either broken or useless depending on what the number 1 means in the context of a headshot multiplier. The Ace is just Precision Shot, but good this time. Stockpile is Stockpile, except it's on the left this time. Skull Trauma feels a little redundant when compared with Head Game's basic, but whatever, the Ace is nice. Armor Piercing basic means nothing without knowledge of how armor layers work. The Ace is just post-nerf cutting shot. Return Policy is just bad Headhunter. This ability doesn't really need a cooldown at all, and making it longer doesn't help. Weapon Spread already exists, so it kind of already has an inherent cooldown. And Ricochet is just Graze. This is bad. With other skills in Longshot, this means the SA and TLR become the Contractor 308, killing every cop on the map before the rest of your team can even see them. And the Spearfish and Reinfeld become budget Red Foxes. So let's redesign the skill to actually ricochet our bullets in accordance with how many pierces we had left, giving the Reinfeld a small buff due to its inherent additional pierce, and giving builds that run the TLR or SA a reason to pick up Armor Piercing Aced. Since the effect creates a bullet rather than redirecting our own, going for collaterals is still encouraged but not required. This skill giving more headshots would also give a reason for Return Policy's cooldown. The Ace also makes it so the TLR, SA, and Spearfish can still benefit from this skill even without ADSing, and giving one additional ricochet to the Reinfeld without giving it any more pierces. Not to mention, this effect would be a lot more visually interesting than Graze, and it would let the Red Fox keep it as a defining characteristic of the weapon. With that done, let's move on to the final skill tree, Ammo Specialist, for, you guessed it, Ammo Bags. Munitions Expert is a good tier 1. Ammo Up 1 and 2 are fine. Utility Belt is cool, though with this category not having a throwable tree, it does make it a harder sell. Premium Bag Basic is a little weird, but fine. The Ace is just high green, but 4 times better. And Bullet Frenzy is pretty redundant with Premium Bag Ace having such a high piercing buff. Maybe it's for guns like the Jackknife or shotguns that don't have any inherent armor piercing, but whatever, you can just not take it, I guess. And with that, we are done with the Ammo Specialist tree, the Professional category, and the entirety of Skills 2.0 as it currently exists. As the title says, the system is close to being good, but it has many major flaws, especially with the stealth skills, though with the work-in-progress nature of the system, hopefully these will get ironed out, and hell, maybe one of my recommendations will get implemented. One last thing I should mention is that there should definitely be more loadout slots added with the system. We were already hurting for more, and a complete rework of the skills means more experimentation, which means more need for loadout slots. If you have any questions for me, feel free to comment. Otherwise, this is where I will leave off the video.